The plan was I'm going to sit here and watch this, and it's probably going to be boring, but it ended up being a shitload of fun.
Let's go on to kind of your rise to prominence. Obviously, this is, I mean, when I say rise to prominence, rise to the point to where this is what you're doing full time now. You're a law. Do you like the phrase law tuber?
No, I hate it.
Okay, then what? How do you identify, Nick?
As an asshole.
Okay. So you're making a living as an asshole, right? How do you get from lawyer guy to making a living as an asshole on YouTube?
So it started with an accident. That's the best part, because it was not a planned thing at all. But I was a fan of this podcast called The Biggest Problem in the Universe, not the current version, but the original version, which is two guys, Dick Masterson and Maddox, who are old internet satirists. They got together. They had this podcast. It ran for 2 years. It's a really good podcast, honestly. The dynamic between them was great. It was a perfect tension. But it ends after 106 episodes, completely without explanation. And they each start their own show. And Dick eventually starts talking about like what happened, why they broke up, and why they're no longer gay lovers. And Maddox ends up suing Dick for somewhere between $20 and $400 million. It's hard to actually tell because the lawsuit was so poorly written. But I'm sitting there on my couch, and my wife was making me watch something on TV, and I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I see that this lawsuit has been filed, and everybody's like freaking out because it's a lawsuit, so it's kind of like official or whatever. And they're like, "Holy hell!" And I start reading this thing. I get about 10 pages in. I'm like, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever read. Like, this is a terrible legal document." It's like, you know what I'm going to do? I was in the Dick Show Facebook group, and people knew I was a lawyer in there, and I had a reputation for getting banned from Facebook for using the F slur liberally. But with that being said, I was like, I'm going to drink some whiskey and I'm going to read through this lawsuit and explain to people, just translate what's going on. Like, what do these terms mean? What do they have to do? And so I did that in some hilariously bad initial attempts at recording, but I was just going to post it to Facebook within the Facebook group. But back then, Facebook didn't let you post videos over 15 minutes as a normal person. You could get there, but you couldn't just do it from the outset. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just post this to this YouTube channel that I have, that I'd only had a YouTube channel to upload some things so I could share them like in other places, like Diablo 3 speedruns or something. But yeah, so I upload the video to YouTube, and a bunch of people ended up watching it. A bunch of people for a first video. It was like 10,000 people or something. And they're like, dude, you should do this all the time. Drink whiskey and talk about law. And I was like, all right, I'll do it more. And so then I did. And then live streaming became this option. Super chats were created. And I got to this point where I said, hey, actually, if I do this full time, there's a level where if I get here in money, I could decide to do this full time, 40 hours a week or whatever it is. And then with the right amount of success, I could possibly replace my income completely, especially if I was able to close down my office and get rid of expenses. And so I hit that level fairly quickly. I guess I started in November of 2017. And then I decided in September of 2018 that I could go full time. And so I did. And then the rest is history after that. I mean, it took a while to wrap up my existing legal work because you can't just drop out of everything. You still have clients. It took, I think, 2 full years to finish up the last things. But then once I did, then it's been just YouTube. But it was really just YouTube long before that. Those are just tied up loose ends. And it's been a lot of fun. But the measure was, can I possibly replace my income? And then, of course, by 2019, I was far exceeding any income I could even come close to making as a small town attorney. So it was great.
So you grow, you make that income. Then the 2020 happens. You have the Kyle Rittenhouse case. That's where you really kind of take the next, the giant leap forward. You're, as you said, you're watching the trial, you're going through, you're watching all that stuff. Talk about, like, did you know that was going to be big when you said, hey, I'm going to cover this?
No, actually, I had no idea. I just knew that when the Kyle Rittenhouse stuff happened, I looked at it and I was like, well, that looks like a clear case of self-defense. But I figured the district attorney would lie and distort the facts in their criminal complaint and try and make a case out of it. And then they wrote their complaint, and I was like, well, that complaint reads like a self-defense case, which is weird that they would write it down so blatantly. And then they went through with the charges. And I really wanted to do this with the Chauvin case. But the Chauvin opening statements happened on the day I started driving down my whole family to Florida to visit my parents. And so I missed kind of the opening statements of the Chauvin trial. And then I was down in Florida for something like a week or 10 days. And I was just not able to spend all day while visiting with my family covering that trial. So I could kind of follow it in the evenings, but I couldn't do it daily. So when Rittenhouse came around, I was like, I am clearing my schedule and I'm going to watch every minute of this damn trial if I can. And I don't care who watches with me, but I'm going to do that. And as I started to do that, some of my other lawyer friends were popping in the chat and I invited them on. Then, people liked that. And so then I would invite more of them on and it just built from there. I had no idea it would be successful at all. I figured, it'd be me and maybe 1,000 people watching this kid get, just raked over the coals by the state. But it grew and grew and grew. And a big flashpoint for that was it was me and Legal Bites and Legal Mindset. We were watching, and there's a piece of testimony that was just so good for Kyle that we all kind of reacted and said that this case should be dismissed right out of the gate. And Viva Fry clipped that and uploaded it to Twitter, and it got something like 4 million views. And that just brought a flood of people into the show because it got shared out by a bunch of big names like Pasobic and stuff like this on the sort of right-leaning side of Twitter. And that brought a ton of attention. And then more and more people just kept coming and coming and coming and spreading the word. And that's how it grows. But yeah, there's no plan. The plan was I'm going to sit here and watch this and it's probably going to be boring, but it ended up being a shitload of fun.
What was the most amount of viewers you had at one point?
In Rittenhouse or ever? Because I think
we'll go Rittenhouse, then we'll go to I'm sure the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial was pretty crazy too.
Pretty close. Rittenhouse, the peak was I think 127,000 live, and then Johnny Depp was like 134,000 live, something like that. So they're very similar in size, and having that many people in chat is really something else. It's impossible to keep up with what's going on. You can put slow mode at like 10 minutes. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you're dealing with the several arenas of people filled watching you talk about something, which is insane. I mean, we got 1,000 people watching right now, which is phenomenal. Which once again, I encourage everyone to hit the subscribe button if you're new. But I think it's crazy to see how people have turned to you for your opinion on these legal cases.
I do too. I think it's insane. I'm just a guy I'm just a guy who I can translate stuff and I can tell jokes and I can make fun of the fat witnesses for Amber Heard and stuff like that. But I don't know, that's it. Like, I don't claim some crazy expertise. I don't claim to know a bunch of ins and outs of trial mechanics in various jurisdictions. Like, I can tell you what my strategies are based on my experience with the human condition and storytelling, for sure. And I can tell you how I might frame an issue, but that doesn't mean it's the right way to frame an issue. And some people kind of misunderstand that. But it's just what we do. We talk about these things, we develop opinions about them, and then we just share them. Because I'm a lawyer, sometimes people give they add import to those words, and it's like, you can't convince people of what to do online, but that's kind of a thing that occurs. And it's like, well, and then they get mad at you if something goes like different. It's like, well, I was just sharing my opinion. It's not like this is some doctrinal thing. If there were easy answers in law, you wouldn't need lawyers. Like, if someone could just call every ball and strike from the sideline, you'd never need a lawyer because it'd be black and white, but it's not.
Right. It's always gray. Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. This is a crazy. I watched the Netflix documentary. about. Did you like post trial? Did you go back and watch anything about like documentaries that have been made about the trial?
No,
'Cause you lived it. You
yeah,
lived
yeah,
it.
I was there. I was there. No, the reality is, and I don't think I ever hid this. I don't care about Johnny Depp or Amber Heard particularly. I like Johnny Depp. I think he's a great actor. I love a lot of his movies, and he was immensely likable in the trial. Um, but like outside of that, I don't give a shit about these people. They're just random celebrities. Uh, I don't like seeing people completely maligned for no good reason other than, the purpose is destruction of who they are. Uh, but yeah, so I know some of my friends like that umbrella guy or whatever, they became highly invested in the topic and Johnny Depp and the people associated with him, and has even had the opportunity to talk to many. I believe he's spoken extensively with Johnny himself, like super cool. Yeah, but I don't care. Like if I could talk to Johnny Depp, it'd be like, wow, this is neat. And then I'd move on with my life. I don't, it's not a big deal for me. Um, Not that I'm important. Again, just not in my realm of consideration. So I don't go back and watch this stuff. No, like I don't have much interest in the kind of mystery surrounding the events. I just cared about the trial because the trial itself was interesting. Here we are with two, and I said this going into it. I'm like, you're about to watch two of the most well-funded legal teams you can possibly imagine, and prepare to be completely underwhelmed by their performance. And I think in a lot of cases throughout the trial, both sides, you could very honestly say, well, that was kind of weak, like in realizing that these teams are paid $6-7 million for what they did, and you're like, and that's what you've got, like that was
Right.
your opening argument, that was your examination or cross-examination, that's what your expert has. Mostly on the Amber Heard side, Johnny Depp came out ahead in most of those encounters, but his team had plenty of moments where you're like, that is all you've got here, like that is your statement. Okay.
Put this in perspective for people, because maybe this is someone I've never been to court from on a trial perspective, right? I never when you're dealing with a situation like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, how much money is being spent every hour per Johnny Depp, per Amber Heard, just on legal? Like, is
Oh
this
God.
like, are they spending? I mean, I would imagine it's probably what, $500-$600 an hour per lawyer, maybe probably more. I don't know, maybe 1,000.
Yeah, it you could easily be spending on lead counsel. You could be spending $900 to $2,000 an hour, and then it goes down in rate from there on co-counsel. But each of these teams has 6, 7 lawyers sitting at the bench.
Mhm.
So if you distill it down to just go to an average rate between all of them of $400 an hour, and then you got multiply by six, what, 6 times 4 is what, $2,400 an hour.
Right.
Um, and that's a low ball figure for like a Johnny Depp team. So yeah, $2,400 an hour, 8 hours a day. Uh, and that's just for trial time, not to mention any time before or after for conferences, not to mention lunch, not to mention lodging and transportation. If any of your counsel's from out of state, you're flying them in, you're flying them first class, you're putting them up in a nice place. I mean, it's unfathomable how much money goes into that type of legal team. Um, and that's just to get a decent shot at your issue. Like if you can't afford to spend what, 18 to $20,000 a day,
Mhm.
what hope do you have?
But what do you think about this? Leave us a comment down below. We read every single one of them. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because you have found your home for common sense in the gaming and entertainment worlds.